I tell you what the main thing that strikes me, and I would respond positively to the fact that Engage has organised this meeting today, because anybody who thinks the answer is going to come from politicians is well, I don't think anybody really expects these days the answer is going to come from politicians, especially politicians if they're not listening to what people are saying, because I think the involvement of Engage in these sessions is extremely valuable. And it's also good to be challenged about how poorly you might be doing as against what the best practice is somewhere else. I think there was a phrase on one of the in fact the final one there, which says about broad stakeholder involvement. And if we're going to get it right in Liverpool, we're going to have broad stakeholder involvement. And it just so happens that we've just started the first period of consultation on the local plan. And the wider the stakeholder involvement we get in that, the better in how we start to prepare the city for how it develops over the next 15 years. The one bit of the presentation that really excited me and accorded with how I feel about things is that I'm now 60 years old. I had my birthday in January. I am now entitled to a bus pass from Mersey Travel, which is an excellent benefit to have. I used to cycle, believe it or not. In my 30s, I used to cycle from Tobruk. I used to cycle up to Prescott, where I was a junior school teacher, and I used to end the journey with that horrendous hill up into Prescott to go to the school I was teaching at. Easier coming back because it was mainly downhill. And whenever there's a campaign for improving the rate of cycling in the city, everybody tries to encourage Malcolm, who after all has responsibility for these areas, to get on his bike. And I look at our roads and I look at how unsafe they are, and I realise that I'm not quite as good at balancing as I used to be when I was in my 30s, and perhaps I may actually be putting my life in danger, at least certainly my limbs. And the pictures that I saw of cycle routes and that cycle superhighway were extremely exciting. Because if they existed in Liverpool, you may even get Malcolm Kennedy getting back on his bike and riding into the city centre. He's not going to do it along Riverside Drive and the Strand and try and turn right up James Street or anything like that. Okay? And so I did have responsible for highways and transport issues within Liverpool City Council when I first became a cabinet member. I relinquished that responsibility for a short while, and it's been given back to me, and I've also been given the responsibility for climate change. Now that's going to be a steep learning curve for this Geordie boy, right? But the fact is that the presentation has also brought out this absolute priority, not just of getting people using other forms of transport, particularly cycling, but it's impressed on the impact that can have on other areas of public policy and in reducing carbon use in this city. Now, there's a really brave target there about becoming carbon neutral. I'm not going to make any broad policy statements and hold the mayor to anything this evening. But I mean, this is really the way that the world has to go, and very simply, else we're not going to have a world, you know. So it's a big challenge. That's a big challenge to Liverpool. Not only increasing that use of cycling, but also reducing the carbon use. I just put one challenging thing. One of the things that probably frustrates me, and makes me sound like a Neanderthal sometimes when I'm discussing these things with people, is we actually do have two cities. We have a north and we have a south. And the challenges for the north in terms of those health issues and transport issues are quite different. We need to unify our city as much as anything else. But we also, the impacts, if proven on health and education, for instance, I think we need to follow. I remember my grandfather never had a car, always walked, except when he occasionally got a bus, made me walk on a Sunday from one side of Team Valley to the other to go from dinner to Sunday school. My granddad lived to 94. He never had any kind of dementia or anything like that. He was as fit as a fiddle all of his life until his prostrate eventually did for him. My father was also quite healthy, except he used a car all of his life and stopped walking, I think, by the age of 45, you know. He didn't quite make it as far as my granddad. And I think that I'd rather be like my granddad than my father. I don't think I'm quite going to make it, but I'd like certainly my children and my grandchildren to be more like my granddad.